We're gonna start a podcast. How we doing, people? Yes, it's that time again for the House of Lords right here on YouTube. 10 o'clock GMT. This week, because of some tech gremlins last week, we're going to be exploring perceptions once again. We can hear you, mate. We can hear you. And you're still going to have those parts of the show, you know, with what comes up with the Right Honourable Marius, hit the pinboard with myself, and obviously last but not least, tip of the day with the Right Honourable Iheanyi, right here on the House of Lords. And if you want to get fully interactive with what we're doing, don't hesitate. You can email us if you want to remain anonymous. And that email address is thehouseoflords3@gmail.com. I'll give you that again. That's thehouseoflords3@gmail.com. So here we are again on this fabulous platform. Don't forget, if you're enjoying what we're doing, let us know. Send us a message. You know, hit that like icon, hit the thumbs up, hit even that bell icon so you can get notified, or a notification even on when we're up and live again. And if you're new to this, we do a live on Tuesday, 10 o'clock GMT, Thursday, 10 o'clock GMT, and Sunday, 10 o'clock GMT. So we're going to be diving off the diving board with one of these two gentlemen, exploring our own perceptions and comprehensions of what we are seeing in the world, our own perceptions on why developing an awareness of what is beneficial. Broadening one's field of vision, if you like, going from the trenches, the infantryman covered in mud, barely see past the end of his rifle, to explore a much greater field of vision. Maybe going back up into that tent, you know, HQ, where the field marshal is, having a good view, getting a full picture of the battlefield. But here we are, 5, Season 2, right here, YouTube, the House of Lords. How we doing, gentlemen? Marius Iheanyi, how we doing?
Awesome, absolutely superb, mate. Absolutely superb. And what about yourselves?
Well, I'm doing great, because I'm alive, you know, and I like to remind people, it's great to be alive, right? Gives me a day to develop on my perceptions, because, gents, we're going to speak about perceptions. It's quite a big subject. The thing is, where are we going to go first? Bear in mind that the last episode we spoke about mind control and the influence that it has in how we perceive things.
Well,
there you go, gents.
Well, I was going to say, leading off from that mind control scenario, all right then. So let me pose the first question, gentlemen. Do we perceive mind control as being one of the elements that affect the perception of the populace?
I'm going to do a Marius here and repeat the question. Does mind control, what? Run that by me again.
So does the mind control aspect that we were discussing last week, right? Does that, or last time, can we observe a correlation between that in its many forms and the perception that it is that the perception of others that causes it? So, for example, television. We discussed TV. We discussed commercials, right? We discussed how little Johnny, he's sitting there watching TV, and then a commercial for McDonald's comes on, and and then literally 2 minutes later, we're going to McDonald's. Right? Remember that?
What? Yeah, I do. But what was the question?
So the question was.
Just let's keep. Yeah.
The question, yeah. So what I was saying was the question was, does mind control affect the perception of others?
Almost, it sounds like a no-brainer. But obviously, because it wouldn't be mind control. That's the most obvious answer and most brazen answer is yes, absolutely. It wouldn't be called mind control if it didn't.
Right.
It's not mind suggestion. It's not mind manipulation. It's not mind kind of, do you fancy it? It's mind control, right? Because it understands the subtle nuances and the environment to get the mind to operate in a particular way.
Right. So can we agree then that there's been the mechanics of, say, advertising the mechanics of advertising add to some form of, are part of that process? Can we agree on that? Can we agree on the mechanics of the advertising? So you advertise a shiny red car, and then somebody wants to get it, and they'll do what they can. They'll work hard. They'll do 4 jobs to get it.
Slightly different, I suppose, in one way. One's suggestive and the other one is actually breaking an individual down and installing a false narrative.
Okay. So the suggestive, just to say the soft suggestive, for example, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a form of mind control in a sense, because it's goading you into maybe an impulsive purchase that you hadn't planned upon.
Right. So now, with that in mind, this is for the ladies and gentlemen, really. With that in mind, now what's your perception like? Do you have control of your perception? Does that person have control of their own perception? Is their perception now? Does the original narrative form from within them, and they go, aha? Or have buttons been pressed, and now their perception is what? It's what somebody else wants it to be. So I just wanted to sort of break that in at the beginning, because when people say, oh, my perception of this is such and such, well, it might be. But when you watched that show yesterday, it wasn't. And now it is. So I'm just looking at the dynamics that are involved as we go into this. And I just wanted to, just put a few markers as we start.
I do apologise. I was
that's
a
all
bit
right.
gaseous then.
That's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's lots of markers to kick it off from. But what about yourself, Marius? The importance on perception, I suppose. And its usage.
based on what he was asking and what you were sharing, Carl, right? Because yeah, it does have an influence. At the same time, it is the perception is not only the influence of the programming of TV, for example, and also, how the media works with all the apps and you name it. It's also the interaction with the others around us, because the others have also an impact on how we perceive things through our discussions, through our experiences, and all of this. Is there similarities in the others that are also, following a similar pattern of continuously, I don't mean continuously, but very often sitting in front of the TV, not being aware of the fact that all these ads and all these movies have an influence on how we perceive things. And because we live in such an environment with which, we attract like, as they say, right? We kind of find it different to break out from it. And if we do, like some have done and I've done in the past, where I get something else, I bring it to my environment, and it's being, hold on, what's that? And then because of the way the conditioning working is like, oh, no, 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 now I'm not being liked by others, I have to acquiesce. Then you get back in, and you kind of share a similar perspective, um, unless you choose to take a different path, which is a more challenging path, and that is where the perception itself starts to shift. Not that it's one perception, but the perceptions in general starts to shift. And perception is, to put it in one sentence, it's what the conclusion that we drawn after we looked at the information or the experience through the lenses that we have in our mind, which majority of them are conditioning through the system that we've been through.
Well, awesome start. Thank you, brother Marius. Before we continue, though, it is about that time for Cue the Mind.
I know what that is all about. Get yourself over onto the mindgym.club. In the chat, how you doing? Welcome to the House of Lords. It's nice to see you back. Yes, we've been sorting out some tech gremlins, but I hope you enjoy the visual experience as oneself and the rest of the cohorts here fine-tuned this beautiful craft. Now, you were saying, Marius, just then about the value of our perception. And there is a question in the header of tonight's show, really, is that perception undervalued? Are people abandoning the cognitive ability to discern and come up with some kind of cohesive understanding or cognitive understanding of what is through the perception of the information at hand. Now, what is the cost of that? Is it the sacrifice or the not use of the higher processing powers of our abilities, of our minds, and just handed it over to the developments of like AI, the smartphone, the Android, and just accepting legacy media's idea of what is? Therefore, we could certainly hypothesize that one's perception and the value of that perception is almost installed and given to them as if it was mind control. Are we seeing people being conditioned at the minute to actually vilify those with a higher cognitive ability to process and verbalize the world around them? Would that be a thing that other people are seeing? And when I say other people, I'm also referring to yourselves. You know, is that something that you're seeing yourselves?
Afraid so. I mean, look, observations are being made, and one of the observations is this relinquishing of the responsibility of so many areas, right? So many areas of within self that it's advisable to govern, to be in charge of. So you just expressed the acceptance of the narrative, thus dictating, well, you're going to be like this, you should feel like this, you should be paid this, you should, and that constant barrage of commerciality, of compounding advertising, telling people what they must be and what they can't be, whether they're good enough or not, right? It seems as if part of the populace has just gone, put their hands up and goes, nah, man, like, I can't even keep up with all of this. I'm just going to go with whatever they say. And they're comfortable with that. So yes, my answer is I have noticed that type of, that's what I've noticed, the relinquishing.
Okay. How about yourself, Marius?
It is actually a great point Iheanyi was mentioning right now, which, yeah, the people may come to a point where we say it's too much. One other thing that I recognized around the people that I come in contact with, that they're not even aware of it. And, you know, when we look at perceptions, it's, are we aware if we are in a lower frequency or a higher frequency? And how is the TV, for example, in the morning, portraying all this? You know, people want to know what's going on in the world because the day just started, and you know, I need to know what's going on. And what I used to see when I used to watch TV, which is a couple of years back, is always the bad news. It's just accidents, war, you know, the market crashes, or the whatever the FTSE 100 shows, and whatever the pretty much snippets, and it's on repeat. That's one of the things that I remember. If you leave it on, it's on repeat for a couple of hours, that the same information is being repeated over and over and over, and like in a loop, right? Which puts the mind in such a low frequency that it starts with thinking that the world is going to end. People are bad. People are only doing the wrong thing. People are destroying the planet. But why do we generalize in such a way? Because not everyone does it. You know, why is it so easy to say, well, people are destroying the planet. No, some people may do it, either conscious or unconsciously, but there's people that are actually looking after the planet, looking after nature. But they're usually being shut down, right? They're usually being shut down because I remember seeing one of the posts that Karl shared recently with the best climate machine that you can use to improve the climate, and it shows a beautiful picture of a lovely tree. such a simple solution that is being shut down. It's not being accepted. It's like, if I remember well, that may be it's just interesting, a Chinese proverb. It's like, if in this life you don't have a child, at least plant a tree. And when I heard that, I was like, that's a great point, right? At the same time, we have to look at the system that we are trapped in, which is called profit, and how a lot of the lands are being, the trees are being cut down in massive amount. I mean, how much furniture do we need? And why don't do the furniture that used to be back in the day, for example, which was, solid wood that would last for a lifetime. Now we have all this crap that lasts a couple of years and you have to throw away and get another one. And it ends up thrown away. We didn't even, and we have machines and we have technology now that we can recycle pretty much everything if we want to. It's not cost effective. It just makes me laugh. What do you mean it's not cost effective? So that's where profit is something that, when I look at it, people's perception of this life is through profit, because everything is about earning. And to ask people to ask themselves this question: how would life be if earning or income wouldn't be a thing, and everything that we would be doing every single day, it's actually collaborating, working with each other, helping each other. It's a new couple, they need a house, the community comes together, let's start building a house for this couple. With the couple together, they build a house as they want it, and there you go. Doesn't need to be paid. You don't need to be paid. Now is the particular season, we need to go plant the seeds, or whatever. The community comes together. Okay, so we need the machineries. They're the people, the mechanics. They all come together as a community, as a collective, and do it for everyone. And when you start to do it because you love to do it, and not for an income because you have to pay bills, which it's interesting that this is coming now, because we were having these discussions in the training tonight, it's a totally different outcome. And the perception of life will be massively different. And the point I started with about the lower frequency, it's how the perceptions are so negative. If you start the day with that, everything will be filtered through those conditions, to those ideas been planted in the person's head when they start listening to it, that they go through the day just not knowing that they're focusing on all the negatives, because they've been pretty much programmed in the morning that look at all the negatives, look at all the bad people, look at all the bad outcomes, instead of looking at the positive things, because they're also at the same time, as Karl mentioned before, well, some bad things happen. Similarly, at the same time, there are good things happening. And if we start focusing on the good things, I'm not saying to ignore the bad things, whatever we perceive as bad, that's another story. But what I'm saying is being aware of it, but focus on the positive, focusing for the solution, then those bad things, whatever bad things, we can start to, minimize it.
very good point, bruv. All right. Perception. Look at those points. We can start to minimize it. Looking at certain points, start to minimize it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Marius speaks. So what? As a species, right? So what is it? If any, is there anything that is there anything that that the populace can? Is there something missing? Is there something that we need to learn? Well, that the populace needs to learn. Are there lessons? Are there directives that take one outside of the limitation? And
Go on, Karl.
what are you guys laughing for?
No, because that's driving out our road. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, no. What we're laughing at is just the fucking scope of the question, mate. It's
Yeah.
You know, it's a massive question for the simple reason the populace is massive.
Mm.
You know, it's a multifaceted observation broken down into theosophical awarenesses to cultural norms through personal dynamics, you know, because it's all relevant to the individual.
Right, and
What's relevant for you to know now?
Is a title one.
Gives a tighter one.
Yeah. Is perception limitation?
Is perception limitation? It depends if one's perception is limited.
Mm.
But is it? But by what I'm asking is, does its very existence allow for there to be limitation within the species?
I wouldn't say its existence. Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. No, I wouldn't say that. You know, perspective or perception is limited. It's just like the tools we have available to us. You know, in any kind of trade or skill, you have various tools at your disposal. Perception is one of those tools, but it comes down to the individual yielding that particular lens to look through at particular happenstances and the bandwidth of the individual yielding it. You know, somebody can have a perception on what you could think is quite shallow shit. So the idea of its value, again, is a very personal one to the individual. Because I wouldn't say I have any perceptions on what's hot, what's popular, what's cracking, who the newest celebrity is. So my perception on those matters would be incredibly low and I have no real value. Where another individual could be, you know, a daily columnist, a weekly blogger on who's popular, who's falling off, who's wearing the newest brand, and all of that jazz. And the perception of their knowledge would be construed as valuable by people that cover that kind of information. So perception in and onto itself is an asset to the individual that's using it for that they infuse about.
So can it real quick, Marius? So let's just So it depends on the individual. So the individual perceives themselves to be less than. Now what? It's limiting, isn't it?
Right? Not their perception.
Their perception may not be. If their perception of themselves places them unnecessarily lower than those around them, right?
Forgive me, Marius. Hang on. Right, so lower. This is just it, right? they're where they are, regardless if they feel like their perception or their value of themselves is lesser than anybody else.
Right.
That's the fucking case.
Right. Okay.
That's where they're at.
Right. So I'm just rinsing through this.
If you feel like you are less, then
Right. So
you've just told yourself that you are less.
Okay. See, I'm rinsing through it in a way because I want the listener to be able to hear examples so that they can go, oh, I can't use that one. Oh no, I can't use that one either. Oh no. So that's why when I'm asking those questions, I know you're going to be like, but I'm going through those because most people aren't going to ask that. They're not going to. Yeah. So I've come to understand, one of my observations is if you're kind of clear with a lot of people, then it's like, okay, now you've been told. Until that point, they never asked the question and the words never came to them. So that was all. That was all. It wasn't hopefully not to tire out your scenarios. It's just I'm kind of bringing it really down to the layman's thing to say, look, all right, look, what about that?
Kind of my response on it as well is to meet you there and say, no. If you feel like you're less, then I'm sorry to tell you,
you're less.
Then that's that.
You're less. Yeah, that's on you.
Then that's on you.
Right. So
if one's worth and one's sense of self-worth
comes before perception.
There's so many comedians that have touched upon this, self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. The fucking key word in all of that is self. Your emotional happiness, your emotional stability, your sense of self, your internalized value. It's all determined by how you're relating with yourself. So I will jump in and just be as equally as blunt and say, that's on you. When I was at the bottom of the proverbial fucking barrel, as life can put you sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, that's me at the bottom of that barrel. Nobody else fucking put me there. That's me swimming about in my own toxic swoop. And it comes down to you as an individual. Everybody can stand above, and reach down and say, come on, right? But nobody's going to learn until they're ready to learn. Nobody's going to get out that well or out that muddy puddle until they're ready to get out that muddy puddle. So if you are constantly weaving for yourself that I'm less, I'm shit, I'm worthless, and there's people around you going, no, you're great, and you're knocking that out the park going, yeah, but I'm still shit, then crack on, high five to you, sit in that puddle, I see you come out. Because it's infectious. People's toxicity is infectious. People's low vibration is infectious. People's retardation is infectious. So the perception of your environment and the people that you're knocking about with is incumbent to the value of your life. If you are the average of the 5 people that you knock about with most, and the 5 people that you knock about most with are, for all intents and purposes, just a regular bod with no aspirations of actually achieving anything, then guess what? You're not going to get very far. Because you are the average of the 5 people that you knock about with. And if those 5 people are just quite happily going to work in Sainsbury's, there's nothing wrong with working in Sainsbury's, but if that's all you want from your life, then that's all you're going to get. But if you want more than that, you've got to be prepared to do more than that, and you've got to be knocking about with people that vibe higher than that. And then you run into the people that are repelled, in a sense, by high vibratory outputs. They think they're better than you. They think they're this. They think they're that. Look at them. They think they're all that. No. And why shouldn't you think you are the shit? Why shouldn't you see the value within your own experience and your uniqueness? I'm not saying that you could go around in the world being an arrogant prick like your shit don't stink. But you can certainly build a sense of value of your own existence. that you are worth something more than aisle 7 emptying fucking cans of boxes onto shelf 4? Do you think that's what the universe had in store for you? You know, when that cosmological space come together and that spark of light within the womb all of a sudden created this life, the moment the sperm entered the egg, and then there's that poof, that no matter how science look at it, they can't quite explain that second of light that seems to plasma spark, boom, as if some invisible cardiac machine, you know, clear, that goes through. And there's your life. You think in that moment, you thought, yeah, this is exactly what this is going to do. It's going to work in Halfords, changing people's light bulbs for 40 years. Do you think that's what the universe had in store for you? Right? But so many people, because of the lack of perception, think that they're doing all right because they have the 9 to 5 job, be conditioned in the way that, oh, you should have a job. Should do something. Oh, but I want to focus on this. Yeah, but that's for people that have got a decent education. Go to private school. Just go get a job. So if you're surrounded by people that are constantly pissing on your fire, then you need to change your fucking campsite. And that's how our perceptions could be molded.
I like that. I like that. I'm going to remember that campfire one. Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Marius, what say you, brother?
What say me? What say me? Trying to drink back the what I was going to say then, and it was the thing is being aware of how the emotions play a part into perception, right? And we discussed before about the emotional maturity, right? Where people can step into that place where they're not being massively influenced by others when they know how to push the buttons. Because that's when the perception changes. We can receive the same information, different moods, and it will have a totally different experience, a totally different perception of that particular information or that particular experience. And just because people are at a particular age called adults doesn't mean they have matured to be at that place where they can be in charge of those. Can be some people can be quite younger and be in charge of their emotions, while a majority of adults are not. And we can be quite childish even as adults, because it gives us the impression that we're there because we're adults. We've been through a lot and we've learned. But if we're not aware how all of this TV programs and adverts and media has an impact on our perception, and we haven't been like, I heard some influencers talking about the emotional intelligence and all that, and it's an interesting concept, the emotional intelligence, I'm not gonna lie. But what about learning how to understand that emotions are not there for you to sit on for a long time? It's like when I watched the I don't know if I repeat something from another podcast, but most probably I did say it then. When you watch about a deer in the wild, one animal being chased by the predator and escapes, it takes a moment where it shivers, it releases itself of stress, and then moves on. The way we go through it nowadays, I'm not saying that it wasn't a time probably in the past when we were like that. But nowadays, it's become such a place where it's all about the emotions. And for people to realize that the emotions are the ones that can be easily manipulated and easily to label you like you don't care, you're not emotional. That doesn't mean that you're not emotional. It doesn't mean you don't care. It just means you are observant of emotions, but you don't let the emotions to interfere with it. It's like, what was the example? It was an interesting video. I can't remember what was it about, but the guy was actually speaking to, I think it was a podcast I was watching, and he was saying to the lady, do you know that usually when something problematic happens, the women and the children go first? And she's like, no, why? Well, because, and I know it's going to sound like bias with the men, but because men can be rational to find the solution where they're not being distracted by the emotion of the children and the women, because they are wired differently, especially, right? And very, very easily can be emotional, and those emotions can influence our decisions and the perception of that particular experience. But to the question that you asked, Iheanyi, and I did laugh at the same time as Karl. Karl took a different answer. And I'm not saying that, but in a way different than I was thinking of, right? And it's like, well, to learn and to find the solution, not the solution, but to find a solution to go through it, is to actually start to develop your own personal philosophical belief system. That's when you go through the introspections. That's when you go to start asking questions of, why did I get triggered? Why did I get emotional? Why do I believe this? Why? To see if all those belief systems that you filter the information with are actually yours, and you really know what you're talking about. Because a lot of them that I found out in myself, I had no clue what I'm talking about. I had them because they were given to me the way I was brought up. That doesn't mean I knew and I understood them, or I even had any substantial, not evidence, but substantial information in order for me to even explain it. I couldn't even explain it. I couldn't even, when they say if you know something, you really know something, you can explain it to a 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old will understand it.
Hold that thought there, Marius. That's a great thought. But we're going to come back to that. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to message us. Join Naomi there in the chat. We're going to be here 3 days a week, Thursday, Tuesday, and Sunday. I know that was all a bit backface, but the time of those shows will be 10 GMT. So, friends, but it is about that time. So, Iheanyi, press that button.
Ignite your vitality. Meet the LifeSpring Gold Card, a quantum leap in wellness. Revitalize your bioenergy, boost stamina, ease aches, and improve your mental focus. Shield yourself from electromagnetic frequencies emitted from cell phones, laptops, and other smart technologies. Restructure tap water, revitalize food, and harmonize everything around you. Elevate well-being with LifeSpring, made in the USA. Order today from VanessaElston.com. Ignite your vitality. Meet the LifeSpring Gold Card, a quantum leap in wellness. Revitalize your bioenergy.
Voila. And let me just cancel that. Clear the layer. Now let's take a look. Yep, we're all good, gentlemen. So, we're back. Hold on.
I'm just going to shut up from the future. It's going to hear me talking over it now. I do apologise, mate.
Don't worry. Don't worry. And we're back.
That's okay.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
Don't, I was going to say, don't wait on me. I'm just about to sneeze, I think.
So, and let's just make sure. Yeah.
Well, if the listeners can put a thumbs up that they heard what it was played a couple of
we heard it because I turned up the volume on my iPad and I could hear the advert. So that's why I said nothing and I did that. There you go. Okay. But we're cool. We're rocking. So
great.
Back to perception, gentlemen. Back to perception. What's going on? Where did we leave it after? Where did we leave it before the break? Where did we leave it?
Well, Marius was making a fabulous point about our perceptions and how, as we go through it, because the important thing was, one of the important things he mentioned, and you've heard us beat on about this a few times, and it's the theosophical internalized belief system. In a sense, people have religious doctrines and faiths. People have theosophical ideas. You have some people that are agnostic. You have some people that are atheists. And every other religion in between. And one of the things about religion installs a theosophical belief system. It's more of an accepting of a story without one's own exploration of otherness. And the value of one's internalized theosophical belief system is being able to take no position in one sense and look at the information and the archaeological evidence at hand and beginning to formulate one's own cognitive awareness on what potentially could be before their life and before life in and unto itself. A comprehension and some form of reasoning and thought upon why their life is and what life is all about. And then again, last but not least, those spiritual theosophical kind of understandings of what could be after the comprehension of soul and afterlife, if at all. And when you begin to weave your own internalized theosophical belief system from how your life's been exposed, exploring all your personal dynamics, and then you begin to patch together this idea. That's all it is. It's not a certain. It's not this is what it is. Not in any chance. It's a amalgamation of that what makes most sense at the moment, given the information at hand. But you are open, but there's also a level of conviction of one's perception of that information. Is it something you're just woefully holding on to, like? Maybe, or is it something that's begun to truly resonate you as if it was a religion to you itself? The way people accept their faith. Do you accept your internalized theosophical belief system? Does it bring the same kind of comfort that somebody of faith receive? And that's kind of what one's looking for. A sense of peace with their own wrapping together of what they're experiencing. But go on, go on.
So there was a time in my history, well, in the noughties, in the the 9s, 09, 08, 07, I think 06. I used to travel to Miami every year for the Winter Music Conference, and I remember one year in particular after I sort of, now I'm fully immersed in the game, right? Not only have I got a record label that I'm running and the tunes are coming out, right? Not only am I a public figure on the turntables, right? So there's all this stuff. And in that industry, parts of there's various mechanics within that industry that you utilize or that you are aware of as you go through. So, for example, as a professional, one's perception the perception I had to portray that I felt was required of me in order to maintain my reputation and to maintain that work ethic status, kind of whatever nonsense, whatever you want to label it as, right? It meant that you never saw me drunk, ever, 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 behind the turntables. You never saw it. Didn't matter whether I was pilled, you didn't know, because I'm that good. Seriously, I'm that good. But I was never drunk. I was never sloppy. I was never an angry bastard. I was never moody, a prima donna. None of those things. In fact, I was one of the few DJs on that level who would put his bags down and go and help the engineer pick up the speaker and put it up here or whatever is needed so that the stuff gets done, right? So I'm that individual. But there was a part of me, when you had to go to the conference, there was a part of me that knew that in order to find my way into other arenas to play, I had to, when anybody looked at us, they had to have a particular perception of us, that we were fucking the bollocks, right? Simple as that. Simple as that. That was it. There's no other part of the sentence. Seriously. No matter whether we were walking down the street or behind the turntables. That was it. For that moment, in that conference, for that limited time on Earth, when it happens in March, right? That was an element that was utilized, right? So when when a buddy of mine and I launched the label, that was it. We had to come a certain way first of all. So when the launch happened, it hit a particular chord within the audience, within the would-be listener and partaker, right? And that was something that we had to do. And when we did it, it worked. And then, obviously, once you got home, you can give a toss about perception. Just in that moment. So I just wanted to share that as, at one point, people's perception of me had to be a certain way. Otherwise, I lost business. Do you know what I mean? So I just wanted to share that.
Mm. But we're seeing that behavior, and I think we discussed that in another podcast, the self-censoring of our points of views to portray a particular idea of ourselves, as opposed to being that best foot forward, genuine aspect of who you are in a completed self. We compartmentalize ourselves in some form of weird public projection of what we would like the world to see us as. And then we find if we continue on a road that does that, we end up with a world of social fakeness. And that's what we're seeing now. This global trend of fakeness being masquerade as
quality, as good,
as quality and as of life. You know, I heard this one saying it's social media is one of those things that was designed to bring us closer together, but has kept us further apart. You know, it's said to bring the family closer together, but it's socially distanced us.
Correct. Yeah. 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 I mean, you know, if you have a society that has an interest in convenience, then putting the right markers in place in the various aspects of life, you might get a bit of a response in that way. So rather than go and drive 2 hours up the freeway to see cousin Susan or Uncle Dave, right? You can jump on Facebook and Bosch use the camera feature. Now you speak to him, you can see him. Oh, where's little Jimmy? Hey, Jimmy, come into the background. Come into the background. Let me see you. Wait, you're looking a bit pixelated. Yeah? Oh, yeah, come closer. Come closer to the camera. Put a bit more light on him. Open the curtains. What's going on? You know, it's that it's that type
2002 connection.
Exactly. You know, so, you know, it would appear that
it brings us to the duality of what we experience and everything that we have in our life, right? Because the media, even though, as Karl was mentioning, you know, to bring us together, can also, and it's already happening, that it's pulling us apart. And it's like Lipton, he said, with fire, right? Right? With fire, you can cook a meal, but you can also cook a man. So, it's the intent that matters. What's the intention behind it? And even though these devices have been some may say it's been there to control us. I don't deny that. Some may say it's been there to progress us. I also don't deny that. Because it also depends on a person's perspective and how they look at it. Right? It's the same like when you look at the AI. People think AI is a bad thing. And I don't want to deny their belief or their perspective. But there are also people that they believe it's a good thing. Because AI can also be used for good and bad. Everything that we have created can be used for both. It's not just one way. But that's where it brings the morale of the humanity that makes the difference. While we are aware of the fact that everything can be used for both, based on the morale of the society, can be used more for the good or more for the bad. The fact that we've been conditioned in a way that ignorance is bliss, if you don't know, it's not going to kill you. Is it really true? I mean, if there's a fire in the kitchen and you're upstairs in the bedroom, that fire is not going to kill you, right? You better know about it so you can actually get yourself out of the house or put the fire down. So yeah, perception is the way we look at it. Are we looking at it at a positive way or a negative way? As I mentioned prior to that, if you start the day with your news on, there's nothing more I can say.
Well, we're going to put that to the test, ladies and gents, because it is about that time. You only press that button. So, ladies and gents, it's about that time to see if Marius can come up with something, because he just said that's all he's got to say. But we shall see with what comes up with Marius.
That was not all I got to say. That was all I had to say in regards to the ones that they start the day watching the news, right? And yeah, gents, interesting topic, perspectives. And what's coming up? Let the mind draw whatever brings to the table. The perceptions are what, in a way, creates our own reality. Based on how we perceive it, it's how we actually create it. Our reality is created with the mind that we receive the information. And based on the lenses, based on the conditioning, based on the experience that we've been through, it draws towards creating whatever we experience. And there will be people there who say, no, I didn't ask for that, I didn't ask for that. I agree, you didn't. At a conscious level, most probably. Now, that can be questioned, how conscious people are. But at the unconscious, where it records every single moment of our life, every single experience, every single program, conditioning, you name it, it's all there. It's the blueprint, let's put it this way. And the fact that we say that we didn't ask for it is not because we really didn't ask for it. It's because we're not aware that we're asking for it through our actions, through our decisions, through our choices. We're asking for it. People say, yeah, but I don't want the wall over there. You may not want it. You think you don't want it, but you elected those politicians. You elected those in power. You gave them your vote. So if you didn't want it, why don't you bring them down? Why don't you change them? Oh, you have to wait 4 years or 5 years. Well, seriously? Do you? Do you have to wait 4 or 5 years? If the people that have been elected are creating wars, why are people doesn't say sorry? We didn't actually agree to that. By not saying anything, you agree to it. So you see, even though you say you don't want it, but if you're not saying anything, it's like you want it. You're agreeing to it. It draws me back to the fact that I can easily say that I didn't ask for anything that I'm going through right now. But if I sit down with myself, I did. Everything I chose, everything I did, all the actions that I made, it got me to this point. Now, my perception can be that this is something negative and can get people to the point where it does happen. People get to the point of depression, anxiety. Some taking their own lives. It can happen. But it's a big but here. If you work towards really developing your own personal philosophical system, where you give yourself the lenses that you want to look at the world with, when you give yourself the position of being in charge of how you're dealing with it. Yeah, you may not agree with everything, yet you may not expect everything to be the way that it shows up. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come exactly as you're supposed to. Because this, which we call life, it's experience. This, what we call life, is to learn, to grow, to progress. And without challenges, it's nothing. It's like that time when people get retired and they end up sitting in front of the TV watching the Flog-It or whatever, and in a couple of years they're gone because their body has actually given up. They've given up on themselves because it's like, now I can rest. Well, you're going to rest when you're gone. You're definitely going to rest. While you're still alive, there is still a lot more that you can do. There's a lot of things that you couldn't do when you were younger, probably, because you've been robbed for the next 45 years doing it for someone else. But now you have the chance. Yeah, but I'm not as flexible. Work on it. There is a lot of people out there that have proven, even at the age of 100, they did a marathon. Oh, they're different. Huh? Yeah, they're different. I actually saw yesterday, there was a lady, I believe she was from India, and she was told there's nothing they can do for her knees and all that. That's it. There's nothing they can do. And with the help of her son, she started to go and start exercising. That's a very powerful story. And by doing so, by starting little exercises, starting moving and all that, she changed her own life. She actually proven the doctors wrong. There's not such a thing, there's nothing that can be done. The only time nothing can be done is when we make the choice that nothing can be done. As long as you're alive, there is always something that you can do. There is always something that you can do. There is always someone that you can help. There is always someone that you can share a moment with. There is always something that can be done. And at the moment, because I share with my dear brothers here that I'm doing changes to my own body. I'm like, I've given up in my own body. I need to do something about it. I started doing the exercises bit by bit. Yeah, you start a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, and then he improves, and then he do a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Before I know it, you guys are going to see it happening in front of your eyes, watching the podcast. And there will be a day when you look at it, it's like, let me go back, like season 1 or season 2, oh, that's him now. Well, I hope by doing that, and by you seeing the difference in front of your eyes, get you understand one thing. There's always something that you can do. Meaning, if you want a better world, start being better with yourself. That's what comes.
There you have it, you beautiful people. Fabulous what comes up with the Right Honourable Marius there. And appreciated by all in attendance today. And rightly so. Fabulous share there, Marius. What do you think about what you said? Because often when we explore a flow state, it's the first time we're hearing some of the things we said ourselves. So, yeah, have you got any takes on what you said?
Well, it's great that you brought that up, because usually what we share is what we have to hear, which is it's really the point. Whatever we share with others, or we teach others, or we want to teach others, it's usually what we have to take actions on. And it took a while for me to get to that point, and I got to that point with the help of you guys, and the help of the people that I surround myself with, and I'm grateful for it, right? Because when you really do the introspection, where you really look at, as I mentioned in our discussion and even in the training, when you really look at, are you truly authentic with yourself? Are you really honest with yourself? Or are you fooling yourself? Just ask yourself that question. And, that draws me to what Karl was mentioning earlier about the fact that the fakeness of that we living through right now, with so many influencers that suffer with depression and anxiety, but in front of the camera, on their pictures, they look like they're living some of the best lives. And because of that, not realizing that they impact others, that they look at them and it's like, oh, and I have a shit life. And that impacts others, taking them to the same point of depression, of anxiety, of just giving up in life. And that's a great point that you brought to the attention. Is, yeah, what's wrong with being yourself? What is it? What's wrong with me being me? Why do I have to put a mask? When we were talking about the pandemic, people putting masks. Like, it's nothing different, is it? We put in masks for so long, depending on who we were interacting with. We have to look in a certain way, or say certain things, or be in a certain way. Shut up. Just be yourself. And if you don't like who you are, or who you think you are, there's always that choice.
But what if people
you
can't
can change that?
But but look at that, and now they're at a point where they can't be themselves. Now what? Because of all the different.
They have the
choice.
Of course
they could. Yeah, no, yeah, they can change, but they can change. And this is as you can see, when you listen to the House of Lords, you hear dialogue that suggests that yes, changes can be made, no matter what the scenario is. However, I see the ones that I still, you hear from the ones that don't. The ones that say that it's impossible. The ones that say, oh, it can't be done. And it just so happens that when they're saying it, they're not kind of on some, it's not them quietly in their bedrooms. They're on some bloody tannoy system. They're on a show. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, wait, we don't want you piping up that, because now you're telling everybody else to follow that type of situation. And we don't, they're not, no, Give them a chance. Tell them the opposite. See what happens. You know, I mean, it's you know, when you said earlier on, you said, you know, have you seen certain things, and you see it, but you always, I don't know, you see it, but it's like, I see it right now, but it can change. You know, as Marius said, you know, people can make changes. I see it, and no matter how disappointed I might feel in my judgment state at that moment in time, I still say to myself, it's still possible. It's still possible.
Mm.
Even through, you know, when we were in the thick of things on Clubhouse, when Marius and I met, and then when I met you guys, where I met you guys, it you know, it just seemed a never ending saga. But through all of that, we had to turn around. We had to acknowledge, but it was still possible for change to take place. It was still possible, regardless of how nasty it looked, how bad it looked, how bleak it looked at one point, or was perceived to be at one point. There was still possibility for change.
You know, to what you said, it throws me back to what Karl was saying earlier. You know, the ones that they think impossible, they're right.
Well, you know
I'm not going to change that.
Well, you know what? Guess what? Hold that thought, because it's about time that I. And now, ladies and gentlemen, live, direct to you, the governor, the gem, the man himself, the dude of the hour. I give you Karl with Hit the Pinboard.
Right. Thank you. Order in the court now. Come on. What's on the pinboard? Well, we could keep it in line with the show, couldn't we? Perceptions. And as Marius rightly brought back up to the table, the perception environment, the perceptions of how we're seeing things and the quality of that perception. Is it a broad perception, or is it kind of a kaleidoscope perspective of the world that you have, made up of various layers that were given to you by your social peers, your family, and your kinfolk? Or is it just sort of like they're made up of the music and societal kind of influences? And there you have it. You're looking through this kaleidoscope of other people's interpretations of what you think should be normal, and they've accepted it and said, this is my perspective on life, because your friends say that, and your friends like listening to this. Your dad votes for them and supports them, and your mum, you know, well, she does this and she don't do that, and you're chip off the old block. So you have to ask yourself, are you original, or are you just another carbon fake made up of hundreds of little pieces of other people, devoid of unique, innovative, creative thought? When asked about the subtle nuances of the way of the world, you just sit there and regurgitate other people's lines and pass them off as your own. Or can you sit there and truly own the quandary of the mystery itself? And that mystery is your own life. Can you sit there comfortable, at peace, with not knowing? Like, hey, it's a beautiful ride, but at the end of the day, I have no idea. For all intents and purposes, you can put me in that ground and that's it. It's over. Ding dong. No more. That's it. Never mind this whole idea of energy folding it back on itself and coming forth and poof, like a little sprite reappearing. There you are, somewhere else on the planet, known as someone else, looking like somebody else and being fundamentally somebody else. Or is it again very lineal in its approach? What would bring more comfort? The woeful acceptance of that people have done before, even your religious deities, even the idol worship. You look at some of these individuals, there was a very clear practice of religious and spiritual conditioning. You know, Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, and so many more. There was something existed before then. And the one thing that they all got in is that one day they went, right, I see all the information, but hang on a minute. Let me see. I'm going to go for a walk over it. But nobody's gone that way. Yeah, I know, but I just want to be by myself for a little while because this is a lot and some of it don't make sense. So I'm going to go for a walk. Oh, but there'll be all kinds of dangerous things in there. Nobody's been there before. You should be very careful. I wouldn't recommend it at all. Yeah, I hear that. I totally understand that, but thank you. So you go off on that magical, mystical walk where there are no footprints in the sand. And you find yourself on that little cliff overlooking a view that nobody's ever seen before. And in that moment where you dared to be different, all of a sudden that peace pops in. You're now the Buddha head. You've now achieved Minyana. You have found your Shangri-La. You have found your inner Zen. You have become Christed consciousness on its return. You now are going to be held aloft and revered. And people will walk in your footsteps and mirror every word you said, thinking that that too will get them exactly where you are. But without the proper perception that that was their journey alone, and the path that they had to walk was theirs and theirs alone. Each one of us have to take that journey of 1,000 miles, and that journey starts with one step each time, moving closer to some unthinkable goal or to some thinkable end for a far greater tapestry that we ourselves may never ever comprehend. So you could pick up somebody else's book if you want to. You could pick up somebody else's autobiography if you want to. You could read somebody else's memoirs if you want to. You could do whatever you want with somebody else's information if you want to. Or you could turn that perception inwardly and start to realize the different nature of your own existence. You've heard me mention it before. You could either be a conformed in a box of 30, just like everybody else, not just similar to everybody being regurgitated out of the sausage factories that we call schools. Or you could be your own display in a box itself, filled with magic and wonder and noise and color. But life is a fickle matrix. If you don't determine and begin to explore the perspective of one's own internal value, what you have been through, what you have seen, if of some merit, believe it or not, is of some value. If you articulate a comprehension of a subject that people would like to learn about, then you could become that archetypal teacher of other people. We quite often think, oh, I need this, I need that, I need to do this. Fundamentally, you're alive, you existed, you've achieved something far beyond so many. If you look at the little counter, the count of people being born every day, you will see that there's another one just next to it of the number moving quicker than a stopwatch on people that are dying. Disappearing, gone, no more, waiting to be reborn as a little boy called Sebastian. So said the headstone of Sarah. And now Sebastian now lives in Mozambique. He was originally from Bethnal Green, and now he speaks a completely different language, and he's also 4 shades darker than he could ever imagine. Has no idea that he used to be Darren from Bethnal Green, but hey, that's the nature of life, folding in and onto itself. So again, like I said, you could either wake up or not tomorrow, and that be it, all done. End of June. Or the world goes on. Uncle Steve woke up, went to the shop, bought a paper just before the funeral, as if it was just another day. And to many, it is. And if this was to be your last day, how the fuck are you going to make it count? Are you going to have it at merit? Or are you just going to be another silent, unread obituary, unnoticed by the world and its masses? Iheanyi, my good man, that is what's on the pinboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, said from the professor himself, Karl, with Hit the Pinboard.
Oh, he's far too kind, isn't he? Hey, Professor, I don't know about that, mate, but thanks. Thank you very much. As he smiles so confidently as the clock of the show forever dials down to the immediate and imminent point where we too have to say, Iheanyi, press that.
Oh, you're going that fast.
And here we are in the last few minutes of the House of Lords, and I'm going to be handing you over to the Right Honourable, sensational, and forever last, but in no means least, Iheanyi, the tip of the day.
Thank you all to everyone. Thank you. So, here we are again with the tip of the day. Now, you know, I just got to say, there's been this. There's been talk of perception, right? There's been talk of it. There's been this whole, comprehension of it, understanding where we are, what it is, how, why, where it sits, where it doesn't sit. But when I think of perception, right, and I think of what's something I could possibly share with you today, right, I say to myself, well, I go back into my own history and I say, well, there were times when, based upon limiting factors that had taken place on the external of oneself, one's perception was skewed. I say it's skewed because when I look at it now from this head, oh yeah, most definitely skewed, way off. There once was an ugly duckling type scenario, even though that wasn't the case. But guess what? I thought so. What does that mean? Perception skewed. Even if I looked in the mirror, perception skewed. Why was that? Because my environment at that particular time dictated a particular narrative, which at that particular time I bought into. My perception then became less than. And at that moment I was less. Why? Because I'd heard a narrative outside of myself that I had taken to be akin with. Why? Because I was looking to collect, to connect, to be something, to be part of something. Because not being part of something was too much for me to bear. And so I had a weak perception of myself, a skewed perception of myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I give you tip of the day, I think I was 7 at the time, by the way, but when I give you tip of the day, if there's anything I can share right now, I can say this. Tip of the day? What would it be? Well, it would be not to really worry, not to be concerned about external factors, not to really listen to or make way for within your psyche some form of external judgment, thus rendering you to view yourself other than who you truly are. I would suggest maybe closing out the noise, the things that tell you this is what you should be, this is what you could be, I hope you're going to be like this, you might want to be like that. Because we perceive you as, oh, this and that. Cut your hair, I can't introduce you to your relatives like that. They perceive you as a ragamuffin. Again, a personal share. You see what I'm saying? See all of that? See the negativity? You see how you see the limitation? And when you're talking amongst these two brothers here, it's not about limitation. So your perception, right? Your perception. Maybe give it a rinse. Give it a wash out. Give it a proverbial wash, a proverbial rinse and shine. Make sure it's crystal clear. And make sure it's picking up everything that it needs to pick up. And make sure you embrace everything that it's picking up. Because if you do that, that's you. And as I see the clock ticks on down, I must say to myself, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is the tip of the day. And there you had it, ladies and gents.
tip of the day with the Right Honourable Iheanyi. So we've been exploring in this particular episode our perceptions and the value of the lack thereof. In some way, has it been valuable to the world or one of a disvalue? I'd like to say we've enjoyed this little conversation, but this is the kind of new dynamic of the House of Lords now. We're going to be running for about an hour and a half as opposed to the 3-hour marathons. We might overstretch that on a Sunday, depending on how we're feeling. We might go past the Tuesday and Thursday hour. But that being said, I hope you've enjoyed this here episode, as we've explored some of this stuff. Don't forget, if you are enjoying it and you want to remain anonymous, you can email us at thehouseoflords3@gmail.com. I'll give you that one more time, and it is thehouseoflords3@gmail.com. And you can see it for your visual pleasure on your screen as we speak. Equally, I want to send a special shout out to Naomi for coming back through at 10 o'clock GMT. And that's when you're going to have to be looking out for the House of Lords now. We've chastised ourselves and told ourselves off that the world likes routine. We know it likes routine, so we have to give you some form of routine programming so you can book your evenings too. Come and see us here at the House of Lords on YouTube 3 days a week. That is Tuesday, 10 o'clock GMT. Thursday, 10 o'clock GMT. And Sunday, 10 o'clock GMT. And for those out of a regimented kind of persuasion, that's 2,200 hours, okay? 2,200 hours GMT. Gentlemen, any last words from yourselves?
Well, as I was about to say, meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, I must remind you, tell your friends, pass it on. Please subscribe and follow us. Click any bells that might be around so that you get a notification when we go live. But finally, I wanted to say, gentlemen, what did you think of that, of our conversation?
Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation this here episode, mate, and I love the visuals, what you've been doing in the background. You've been doing very well there, mate.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Just what we are.
Well, I want to say thank you to our listeners. I want to say thank you to Naomi. I want to say thank you to Karl. Thank you to Iheanyi, especially our technician. And it's been a great conversation, as always. And get ready, because we are losing up and really bring it to you guys from a place of love, as God says, love and light to you.
Love that. Right, so ladies and gents, we're going to be out of here. You know what time it is. Be here again. Sunday's episode right here. The House of Lords, conducted by myself, the Right Honourable Karl. I don't know if I can say that about myself, but I did. Right Honourable Marius and the sensational Right Honourable Iheanyi. And you can catch us same time, same place, 3 days a week. That's GMT, 2,200 hours here. Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Bring a friend next time, but that's it from us. Nothing but love and light to you and yours from all of us at the House of Lords.